Oh my god, I'm gonna sweat so much. Well, hello there. So I've been quite fascinated the last couple of years with polyamorous relationships. I think it's really interesting to see how they work and all of the different types and dynamics you can have. I have quite a few people in my life who live in polyamorous relationships, and I use polyamorous as an umbrella term here for any non-monogamous relationship, really. So this whole thing started a couple of years ago when one of my friends, Juno, showed me the movie The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And my life hasn't been the same since. So if you don't know the movie, it's basically about two male spies, one from Soviet Union and one from the United States, along with a woman from Germany during the Cold War, and they all have a mission together. And the movie really tries to make you think only one of the guys and the woman are sort of pining for each other. Well, I believe it's quite common for everybody to either ship the two guys together or the three of them together, which was my case. And yeah, so basically since that film, I've been taken over by the idea of polyamorous relationships, especially in media. Maybe you don't know, but I'm a film student. And I realized that it seems like I take every single opportunity to say that, but this actually became the theme of my thesis for the end of my course. I'm gonna be analyzing how polyamorous relationships are portrayed in film, and also maybe writing a script of my own. I don't know. It's still up in the air. I am physically unable to read a single book with 3 friends in it and not ship it, which is a thing that's happening. And since I've been reading a lot of romance novels lately, I was thinking, wow, this might be the perfect place to look for polyamorous stories. And due to the fact that several of my friends have polyamorous relationships, and I myself am a very non-monogamous person, this is just a very close thing for me. This is a topic that's very dear to me. And I was really interested in reading about these types of relationships in books. I just feel like non-traditionally published romance usually tries to push the boundaries a bit more on what is acceptable and what society deems as acceptable, really. And, you know, I just thought, wow, this might be the place to look for non-monogamous relationships. Who would have thought to look for another type of romantic relationship in a romance novel? Revolutionary. So yeah, I started trying to find romance books with polyamorous relationships, especially books that were not so sex-centered, even though I did come across quite a few that were. And, you know, I stumbled over a lot of trash. Which is something, you know, there's a lot of great romance novels, but like any other genre, there's also a lot of trash. You know, shit happens, we're used to it, it's fine, I'm fine. So, you know, I was coming across quite a lot of trash, but I was also coming across a few gems, and I thought to myself, this might be a nice journey to... How do you say that? Shit. And I thought to myself, this might be a nice journey to record, you know, to have you guys coming along with me. So if I come across trash, you'll hear about the trash. If I come across good things, you're gonna hear about the good things. And this is it, really. So this is gonna be a series on my channel, I think. So yeah, welcome to the Quest for the Best Polyamory edition. In this video specifically, we're gonna be targeting some romance novels, but I do intend to branch out eventually. So if you have any recommendations with books with polyamorous relationships, be them romance or any other thing, just leave them down below and I'll be more than happy to check them out. So I am gonna vlog the experience and at the end of the vlog, I'm gonna do basically a wrap-up of sorts. And I have already chosen 2 of the books, but I do think I'm gonna choose one more along the way. So the first book I'm reading is Delectable by Ann Grech, I think is how you say her name. I'm not sure. And this is basically about this Australian couple who have a friend who went to serve in the army, and I believe the book starts with this friend coming back from the war. And, you know, I think things are gonna go from there. But I do believe the friend joined the army because he wasn't knowing how to deal with his feelings for the couple. Something along those lines, I'm not quite sure. And the next book that I'm going to read is 3 by Hannah Moskowitz. And this one, I believe, is about a girl who moves cities with her mother and starts in a new school. And there she meets this couple that have a history of letting a third person into the relationship. So, and I believe the girl in the couple has polyamorous parents. I think that's it. So yeah, I found these books while I was on Amazon looking for romances with polyamorous relationships, and the only things I know about them are the things that are on the synopsis. So it is what it is. As I read, I'll update you guys and tell you more about the stories and the characters and what I'm thinking and all that jazz. So yeah, this already took too much time. Jesus. So hi, I'm about 50% into Delectable by Ann Grech, I think is how you say her name, and I'm really enjoying it. I really like it so far. The first chapter was amazing. It was really moving seeing these characters reuniting after years away from each other, and even though I had just started getting to know them by that point, and seeing Connor's last assignment in the military and he suffering from PTSD after, and how Levi and Katie were always trying to comfort him and understood his situation and really were trying to be this grounding presence in his life, was really powerful. I really enjoyed it. So I am actually really loving the characters in this book. Porra, Felicia! So we have 3 main characters. There's Levi and Connor and Katie. So Levi and Connor are childhood best friends, and Katie is Levi's girlfriend, but she and Connor also became best friends. And they all have a really loving relationship even before they start realizing that their feelings for each other aren't exactly what they thought they were or what they actually were at the beginning. They really care for each other, and they they're really loving to each other, which is, it's very nice, you know. Connor and Levi especially, it's very nice to see male friendships, you know, between adults in romance being so openly loving and supportive and physically reassuring as well, physically loving as well. Because like they hug, they say I love you, which is very refreshing, and yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, that's the relationships. The novel starts with Connor coming back from his 5 or 6 years in deployment with the army, and basically he joined the army to kind of, well, there were more than one reason, but I believe the main reason was him kind of running away from Levi and Katie and the feelings that were starting to flourish there. It's very angsty. There's lots of pining and lots of confusion and shame and guilt involved, but there's also a lot of love and respect and care and just plain old cuteness, and I love it. It's very slow burn though, so if that's not your cup of tea, I would say this one is probably not for you. I think the way the characters think about each other and feel about each other is very realistic, especially the way they think about their feelings. It's like, I'm typically not a fan of miscommunication as a trope in romance, but I think in this particular case, it makes sense. Because, like, I imagine it ought to be a very hard situation to be in. So take Connor, for example. Not only is he in love with his best friend, not only is he in love with his best friend's girlfriend, not only is he in love with two people at the same time, which must be very confusing in and of itself in such a monogamous society. Not only is he in love with a person, one person in a relationship, not only for two people in a relationship even, but all of the above. And the same goes for Katie and Levi, who are in this loving relationship with each other. Not only are they pining after the best friend, they also have to deal with all the guilt and the shame that come from having feelings for someone else when you are in a committed relationship, a monogamous relationship. All of that being said, I do have some gripes with this book. Most of them are gripes with the writing, and they might be quite personal and not necessarily these are things that are going to bother you as well. So every now and then the writing does get a bit cringy. Like, most of the time it's fine, but when it does get cringy, it gets very cringy. I suppose everyone has different definitions of what is cringy and what makes them cringe. Maybe these are very personal to me, but if Katie calls Levi her man one more time, I swear to fucking God, I'm gonna lose it. But back on track. There is an overuse of certain terms, one of them being her man for Katie, talking about Levi, but also his best mate and worship her. They also have these pet names for each other that actually drive me up the fucking wall. Yeah, Katie calls Connor Boo, which is but I can accept it. But Connor calls Katie Cupcake, and I cannot get behind that. It wouldn't be so bad if you weren't for the fact that they constantly use these pet names, which is another thing. The characters are always referring to each other by name or nickname or pet name in like every single sentence, every single line of dialogue. That is not realistic. It's as if my mom just got home and I basically went up to her and said, "Oh, hi, Mom. Yeah, school was fine, Mom. Oh, how was work, Mom? Oh, Mother, that's too bad. How are you, Mom?" It's like, people don't actually do that. That's not how people work. That's not how talking works. Like, sometimes people just say shit without calling you anything. So that's something that irritates me a bit. I also take personal issue with the fact that the author says us instead of us. That didn't sound different at all, did it? Oh my God. Okay, so like, she uses ARSE instead of ASS. I think that's how British and Australian people actually say it. And the book does take place in Australia. But at the same time, they could not say it like that. There's also a lot of mentions of songs in the book, which is something I generally don't like when it's done in books, especially when it's with songs that I really dislike. But at one point in this book, Cara sings Wonderwall by Oasis, and it was supposed to be taken seriously, and I just couldn't. And I'm wondering if that makes me a bad person, because it was like a really emotional scene, but how can you take that seriously? It's like, Wonderwall was a fucking meme. Today. Oh, and I almost forgot. They like The Big Bang Theory. But all that aside, you know, all of these issues that I had with the writing, they didn't really hinder on my enjoyment of the book. Like, yeah, sometimes the writing got cringy, but overall it is quite okay. There are points where it's actually really good. We just had like a couple of really great chapters. The first chapter is phenomenal in my opinion. So, you know, it's a thing that I would like to point out, but it wasn't really a problem for me personally. I think if you can overlook a couple of, well, not a couple, a few cringy lines in your romance, then you can certainly enjoy this book. One thing that does hinder on my enjoyment of the book, however, is the fact that after the first chapter, Cara's PTSD just sort of took a backseat, if that makes sense. It is mentioned in passing that he had nightmares and episodes and flashbacks, and that he's been going to a therapist even before he got back home. But it's always just like that, you know, it's in passing. It's never really something that goes in depth about. Fair enough, it's a romance novel. The point, and well, not the point, but the focus of the book is the romance and the relationship and how it evolves and all that. But at the same time, like, nobody forced you to have your character having PTSD. So, I mean, if you're going to go for it, then go for it, you know. But I do hope that we're gonna get a bit more development in this subplot, because like around the 100-page mark, which is actually Matt, Cara's therapist, we actually saw one of the sessions playing out, and it was really nice. I really liked it, so not all hope is lost, I suppose. Hi, it's been a hot second since I last updated you, but things have happened and I really wanted to share them with you. Okay, so not only did we have to see a character called Vibrator's Vibes, we also had to read that Katie has a curvilicious ass. I don't think I have words. Not only that, I mean, I think I'm gonna put a spoiler warning here. But yeah, spoilers for this polyamorous romance novel. They have sex. And I was just baffled because Cara actually calls Katie Cupcake during sex. No, I honestly don't have words for this. Oh my god, if that happened to me, I swear to God, I would lose it. I would just break down laughing. I'm gonna actually read this for you. Cupcake, I'm close. Come with me. This is during sex. Can you not? I read it and I had to share it. I just finished reading Delectable and I really liked it. I found the ending to be very satisfactory, and I loved how things actually had consequences. Like, yeah, we had people supporting our main trio, but we also had people who took a bit of time to adjust to this new dynamic and this new idea of a relationship. And we had people who were openly disgusted by it, and even the characters' jobs had repercussions, self repercussions. Which is another thing I really liked about this novel, is that the characters actually had things they did on their own. Like, they each had jobs and hobbies and families and backstories, and even though those weren't the focus of the narrative, I think it was pretty nice that they were included. We don't get daily full scenes of them going to work and stuff like that, but we do get snippets of it, and you really get a sense that these jobs are a part of these people's lives, and I think that's really nice. No, I cannot say this for sure, because I don't suffer from this particular condition, but I felt like Hannah's PTSD was handled a lot better on the second half of the book. Even by the end of the novel, they explicitly say that even though he learned to deal with it better, his trauma was still there. We actually got to see his episodes a few more times, and even when he wasn't having an episode, you really got the sense that this trauma affected his life in more ways than that. Like, he thought he was a burden to the people he loved. He thought he might be ruining their lives and things like that. And he talked about how his therapy is helping him learn to deal with that and try to fight this kind of thoughts when they surface in his head. Also, may I just say that I'm really pleased with how this book focuses more on the feelings the characters have for each other rather than the sex. Because I'm really pleased with that. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my smut as much as the next girl, and there's nothing inherently wrong with a book that revolves entirely around sex, but it does bother me a bit that most of the poly romances that I've read this past few years are so sex-centered. I tweeted about this a while ago, and I don't know, it just seems to me that these authors see polyamorous relationships more as this sexual fantasy than an actual beautiful and valid way to have a loving and caring relationship. I feel as if it's always about the sex, not always, but mostly about the sex, not as much about the feelings and the actual involvement you have with other people. I don't know, just something to think about, I think. But for the people looking for some raunchy scenes, don't despair, because Delectable has some of those as well, so, it's for everyone. In the end, the rating was still a bit hit or miss for me, but overall I had a lovely experience, I'd say. Hi there, I still haven't read anything else yet, so in my defense, I actually wasn't able to read anything else yet. I spent the last couple of days working from home, thankfully, so still self-isolating like a champ.
That's gonna be a fucking yikes for me, holy shit.
Anyway, I actually remembered that I read another poly novel, although the term poly on this one is a bit loose. I read this book right before I decided to make this video, so it's still somewhat fresh in my mind. Now thinking about it, maybe the reason I thought about making this video was because I read this book? ? It's called Downtown Devil, by the way, by Cara McKenna, and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't like much about this book, to be honest, which is saying a lot, because I am a very simple host, so it's very hard for me to actually not like a book. I guess there's a first time for everything. So, okay. The book follows Claire. She has this idea for a photography exhibition about basically biracial people. She is biracial herself. And this owner of a small gallery gets interested in it. And that's how she meets Mika. Or Micah. Mika? Micah? I think when there's an H at the end, it's Micah. Anyway, that's how she meets him. So she goes to the cafe where he works at, Micah, and she sees him. She thinks he's very beautiful, and he suits the idea of the exhibition quite well. And so she politely approaches him to see if he would be up to posing for a few portraits. So he says yes. They agree to go to a party together where she will take the photos, and that is how she meets Vaughn, who is Micah's roommate and best friend. Micah isn't actually from the same town Vaughn and Claire live at. He's just spending a few months there, and he's staying at Vaughn's house. So, to sum it up, Micah and Claire start fucking, and one day, out of the fucking blue, Micah goes up to Claire and he's like, would you like to kiss Vaughn? And Claire is very taken aback by that. She's like, what? Sorry. And then Micah starts like pounding her with questions like, would you like to kiss him? Because like, if you want to, it's totally fine. Like, would you like to kiss him? Do you want to kiss him? Go up there and kiss him. And no pressure though. It's fine. But like, would you like to kiss him? And Claire, understandably, is very taken aback by that. And she's like, yeah, sure. I could do that, I think. And I mean, that's already a bit iffy, isn't it? But boy, oh boy, it gets so much worse. So the three of them have sex. All of them seem quite pleased with the ordeal. But Claire is actually into Micah, like emotionally into him for some fucking reason. And she wants to be alone with him again, and she wants to have sex with him alone again. But every time he invites her over, he basically pressures her into asking Vaughn to join them. She actually quite enjoys having sex with the two of them, but she never goes over with that intention. She always goes over thinking like, oh, I hope today Micah is gonna be only with me, you know. And it's not until Micah brings it up that she should go and ask Vaughn to join them that she actually thinks about it and considers it. And, you know, she never actually starts it wanting it. And Vaughn is also quite uncomfortable with the situation. He's actually really into Claire emotionally, and he makes it pretty fucking clear to Micah that he does not want to have sex with him. And the three of them always, to the very end of the novel, say that Vaughn is a straight guy. And they say constantly, trust me, which I'm not even gonna get into that here. That's a discussion for another day. But basically, Vaughn wants to be with Claire. Claire wants to be with Micah. And Micah wants to be with Vaughn. So, not a very healthy concoction going on. And then we find out that Vaughn and Micah sort of have a thing going on. They have known each other ever since they were kids. They were both part of this climbing program for kids from rough neighborhoods, and they had this sort of enemies to friends relationship. So when they grew up, since they lived in different cities, they started this tradition of every year going to a climbing trip together, just the two of them. And in these trips, Micah would basically end up jerking or blowing Vaughn off. And Vaughn is really not comfortable with that side of his sexuality. So when Micah comes over to spend a few months on his house, Vaughn tells him straight up to his face, listen, this is not going to happen anymore. I don't want to be doing this anymore. And please respect me. He basically vows that he's not going to let this happen in his house, in his city, which is a bit iffy as well. But like, okay, let's expect a bit of growth from our characters, right? And so the whole book is basically Micah playing with Claire's feelings because she, for some reason, fell for his douchey ass, and him manipulating both Claire and Vaughn into these situations and pressuring them to agree to things they wouldn't otherwise agree to. All of that so he can make Vaughn break his vow, and so that Vaughn will eventually be forced to finally fuck him. And I think that's disgusting. Just for the record though, I am not against dubious consent on books and other medium, although I do think trigger warnings are necessary for this. I am definitely not opposed to it being portrayed. But for me personally, and maybe that's because of, the things that happened to me in my life, but I felt like Downtown Devil crossed the line, because I really got the sense that not only were the characters uncomfortable with the situation, they were also actively fighting it, especially Vaughn. Regardless if he was straight or not, regardless if he ended up saying that he wanted Micah at the ending of the book, his boundaries should have been respected. He did not ask for much, and he got fucking nothing. Before I get into that, just a warning, this section of the video is going to contain spoilers, so if you care about that or you want to read this book, skip to this timestamp. And also this section of the book is going to include some discussion on sexual assault, so if that is something that might trigger you, also go to this timestamp, please. Be safe, take care of yourself. It's gonna be fine. You're not gonna miss a huge chunk of the video. Go to this timestamp. Everything is gonna be fine. Maybe Cara McKenna doesn't know it yet, and if that's the case, I really hope she learns it soon. But if someone is pressured into giving consent or coerced into giving consent, that is not consent. That is sexual assault. And it's a form of sexual assault that is often not taken as seriously, and unfortunately one that hits too close to home for me. So yeah, I did feel very grossed out reading some of the scenes in this book. In the end, I wasn't a fan of the writing in general, especially how repetitive it was. I definitely did not like Micah, even before I realized how fucking disgusting he was. He was already too much of a man-child with no emotional maturity and no responsibility or care for other people's feelings. And even though the other characters took issue with it, they also simultaneously had this attitude of like, oh, this is Micah, that's just how he is. That's Micah for you, but that's his way. And I mean, neither that or they were trying to justify his bad behavior with the fact that he had a bad childhood. And listen, I am not making light of trauma. I am not making light of bad upbringings. God knows I went through a fair share of those myself. But although his childhood might explain his behavior, it definitely does not excuse it. And seeing Vaughn at the end of the book coming to the conclusion that deep down he actually always wanted to have sex with Micah was very heartbreaking to me. It honestly felt like a punch to the gut. So if you read this book, I would love to know your opinion about it, because I think I might just be taking things too personally. I don't necessarily think it's objectively a bad book, but at the same time, I feel like I'm involved with it in too personal of a level, and so I can look at it objectively, if that makes sense. And if you want to read this book to make up your own mind and see if you end up liking it, that's perfectly fine, go ahead. Just be mindful and remember that this is a thing that happens during it. So take care of yourself. Hi there, so I've come from this very unflattering angle to let you know that I'm about 50% into 3 by Hannah Moskowitz, and I am loving it so far. This book is so fucking cute. It's about this girl called Taylor. She moves with her mother, moves cities, so that they're both gonna live with her mother's boyfriend. There, in her new city, she meets this guy, Theo, and she's very interested in him. But she finds out that Theo dates Josie, who is a girl she also met at the same party she met Theo. And she's taken aback a bit, and then they explain to her that they have a polyamorous relationship, and they have a history of bringing like a third person into the relationship. And they invite her in, to, if she's comfortable with. I really like how this book puts an emphasis in dialogue inside polyamorous relationships, and how it delves into that. Josie and Theo, especially Theo, they are always very open to dialogue and answering questions and talking to Taylor about anything really that she wants to talk about. It's just overall a very good book, and yeah, I'm very excited about it. Taylor, our main character, is actually Cuban, and at least on her mother's side. I don't think we've heard much about her father. And Theo is Brazilian, which got me excited because I'm also Brazilian. I feel like I'm a teenager all over again, because this book is getting me very giddy, and I don't know, I'm loving it. But it does have quite a lot of typos in the ebook. I don't know if there's a physical version available for this book. I'm reading the ebook. It's on Kindle Unlimited, I think. And there's quite a few typos and some grammar mistakes in the book. It does take me back a bit, sometimes, but mostly it doesn't hinder my enjoyment of the book so much. I like the writing overall as well. So, yeah, it's been really nice. I'm loving it so far. I'm also loving the focus on the family dynamics and all the different family structures, I guess, you can have. And, Taylor is very close to her family. Theo is not that close to his family. And Josie's parents are actually polyamorous as well. So, and it really is something that the author and the book go into quite a bit. So it's very interesting reading about the different family dynamics. I really, really like Taylor, our main characters, and our main character. Yeah. There's also this part at the very beginning where Taylor gets asked by a guy what she is, as in what her ethnicity is. And she says she's Cuban mostly. And she says Cuban mostly. And the guy says, oh, you don't look Cuban. And she, like in her inner monologue, goes, oh, there we go again. And you can tell that she's a bit like rolling her eyes about a comment, which I can totally relate. Whenever someone tells me that I don't look Brazilian, and usually they say that as if it's a compliment, I'm just like, what are we supposed to look like? Are we all supposed to look the same? I don't, you know, and so that was something that I could definitely relate. Well, hello again. It's been a hot second. I was just reading this bit which I'm going to read to you in a second, by the way. So Taylor, who's our main character, is talking to both Theo and Josie about their arrangement and basically how the relationship works. And she actually asks them, is this like some party clause you have or what? Wait, why did I say party like that? Theo answers, a party clause. And then Taylor explains, one of my friends from back home, he and his girlfriend had this deal where when they were at parties, they could mess around with other people. And at that point, I already felt seen. But then Taylor goes, the theater kids are so sexual, and I feel so much more seen now. Hi, I just finished reading 3 by Hannah Moskowitz, and I don't think I have words to describe how fucking cute this book was. I absolutely loved this book. I loved how many aspects of the characters' lives we got to see. And, you know, they all had school things and university things and things they were passionate about. And of course, they had their own families with their own dynamics. And we also had Taylor trying to balance her new and old friendships and thinking about how she would bring up the fact that she was in a polyamorous relationship now to all of these people in her life, you know, her family, especially her mother. I think there's 2 aspects of this book that I loved the most. One of them was seeing all of the different family dynamics. Taylor lived all of her life with only her mother. It was always just the 2 of them. And now all of a sudden she's just thrown into the situation where she is going to move cities and live with her mother's fiance. And his daughter Alexis, who is 5, lives with them every other week. The parents have like shared custody. And I think the most interesting thing was that she wasn't really angry or worried about this whole change in her life. She was actually pretty excited because she wanted to know what it was like to have a family, like to have a father figure. And why did I quote that? To have a father figure and to have a sister and all that. Things that she always saw her friends having, but she didn't have as well. And it was very interesting seeing all of these people navigate this whole new system and trying to figure out like the place and the role they had in each other's lives, you know. And you could see, especially I think with Dominic and Taylor, how they were still trying to understand what his role would be in her life and vice versa, because like both of them didn't know what a stepfather was supposed to do, you know. Was he supposed to be just like a father to her? Was he supposed to tell her to do things, or was he supposed to just be quiet and observe? Like, what do they do, you know? And what role was she occupying his life? Should she act as his daughter? Like, both of them were quite confused about that, and I thought that was quite interesting to read about, you know, how they were just trying to understand really how to function as a new type of family unity. Taylor's relationship with her mom as well was quite present in the book because they are very close to each other, they're very friendly to each other. It's always been just the 2 of them, and you know, there's the whole thing about the expectations her mother had for her, and her mother had her quite young as well, so there's a lot of baggage, you know. also Dominic, who's the model's fiance, he has an ex-wife, and this ex-wife also has a new partner, and this new partner has a kid who is around Taylor's age and goes to the same school as her. So this kid is Taylor's stepfather's ex-wife's stepson. Wrap your mind around that one. And this kid is named Lucas, and he and Taylor have this sort of friendship, and we kind of like family, but not really family because we're not related in any way. And I loved all of the different relationships in this book, and just this awkwardness and just trying to understand all of these things and where you fit in each person's life and how this family works and all of that. I thought it was very nice. And this book is actually YA, which I didn't know and was actually quite surprised about. And I just think it's nowadays it's more common, I guess, but it's not as common to really see families and parents and all of this stuff in YA, at least not like in a deep level. And I really liked how the family relationships were really important to the story, really, and very well developed as well. And we also get to see Josie's parents pop up a few times in the novel, which was very interesting because her parents are polyamorous as well. And, both of them have other partners, and seeing how they function and how much of that Josie carries to her own life was very nice and very interesting. I really liked how this book put an emphasis on showing that there isn't one right way for you to have a family. There's all types of families. So the second thing that I loved the most about this book was seeing Taylor navigating her feelings and her ideas regarding polyamory, and especially regarding Josie, really, and learning new things along the way about herself and about love and about relationships and all that. And I really loved whenever she stopped to analyze the types of love that she feels for different people in her life, and bringing it back to make the whole polyamory thing make more sense to her. There's also this line on the synopsis of the book that I think sums up quite well the themes in this novel, and it says 3 young reps who we love and how we love in numbers as odd as we are, which it's basically that. It's most of the time Taylor is going through her relationships with people and analyzing them and understanding step by step how they work and how she loves different people, and it was very nice to read about. While on this topic, I think it's also important to say that Taylor is, in her own words, slightly Catholic, and at one point in the book, one of the characters decides to have an abortion, and it was very interesting to see, what Taylor thought about the decision and how that too kind of transformed over time. And of course, I adore the fact that the character who had an abortion was very unapologetic about it. And I loved how that whole arc ended up. It was just chef's kiss, yeah. I thought all of the characters in the novel were absolutely amazing. Not necessarily in the sense that they are great people, they would be great people if they existed, but in the sense that they were all very developed, I think is a proper word. We have Anya, who is Taylor's best friend since childhood, and she's Indian and she's a very fierce and loyal friend, and she tries to protect Taylor, and she's been in this monogamous relationship for ages, and seeing how that sort of brings another thing to the table. Seeing the contrast between the two relationships, and Taylor being afraid to tell her about her relationship because of that fact. There's also Alicia and Mike, who are not primary characters in any way. They show up very sparsely across the book, but they are Taylor's colleagues from the swimming team. She is in a swimming team, and there's Dominic and Alexis and Sarah, who's Taylor's mother, and Lucas, and all of the characters who just... I don't think I can put into words how much I love this book. And I also really like the writing, which we're very happy about that. It's a first for this video. But I have to say that the ebook, I think it's only available on ebook, but it was on Kindle Unlimited when I read it. And the ebook actually had quite a lot of errors in, like, it had some typos, it had some misspellings of words. Sometimes there would be either a word missing or an extra word in a sentence, as if the author was going to write something in a way and mid-sentence decided to change it, you know, and then ended up forgetting like an extra word that belonged to how it would be written before. I am really just making everything sound way more confusing than it needs to be. It had some editing problems, is what I mean, and, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it did take me back from the story. It did take me out of the story sometimes, because it was sprinkled throughout the entire book. But I really want people to read this book, even with all of the editing problems, because it was so good. Oh my god. In the end, this one was just beyond all of my expectations. I loved it so much. I think I'm gonna read one more book for this video, but I haven't decided which one yet. So I have Three-Way Split by Elia Winters and Rule of Three by Kelly Jamieson, and I also have A Lesson in Thorns by Sierra Simone, which I heard has a main character who gets with two guys or something like that. I'm not quite sure. I might read that one. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna figure that out and then I'll let you know. So, I just started Rule of Three by Kelly Jamieson, I think is her name. And this is a bit weird. I'm still on page 1, and there's already been 2 times where a male character was described as male somehow. Here. So handsome, so big, so new weakeningly male. And then right on the next paragraph, she nuzzled the side of his neck, inhaling the warm, sexy male smell of him. I'm not a huge fan of when people just describe things as, oh, he's so male and he's so manly and he's such a manly man. You know, okay. Maybe I'm just being too harsh. I just started it. It's still the first page. So I'm gonna get going with this. I just had to read a description of a sex scene that said that his cock impaled her. God damn it. I'm gonna keep reading this. Because if nothing else, if this is a terrible book, at least I'm gonna have a good laugh. Because I just broke down laughing with his cock impaled her. He appeared in the doorway of the bathroom moments later, dressed in black pants and a grey sweater layered over a white t-shirt. Yum. It's written there. It's written yum. His best friend is called Dag. His name is Dag. Is that a real name? And they just met and he called him Dagster. And of course, he pulled him into a masculine hug because, you know, all of the manly men only do manly things and they're always masculine. And that's the only proper way to describe anything they ever do. So I'm in page 56 now, just beginning chapter 6. And the book is actually getting quite better. And I think I might be liking this now, which is crazy. I'm conflicted. I'm digging this. I'm surprised. There's been some sexual tension so far and some hints that Dag and Chris actually have a past. Dag is actually quite inappropriate for a best friend. He's been inappropriate with Cassie from the get-go, basically. Not inappropriate in the sense that he, like, crosses her boundaries or anything like that, but inappropriate in the sense that this is your best friend's girlfriend. This is a woman in a relationship, you know, you probably shouldn't be getting so touchy with her, but I mean, Chris seems fine with it, so I'm definitely not gonna be the one taking issue with the situation. As of right now, Chris seems to be third-wheeling a bit, so that's a thing. And so far it seems like it's more of a sexual tension between Chris and, what's her name? Cassidy. So, Kelly, girl, you need Jesus. Oh my god, this book is raunchy. Oh my fucking god, I was not anticipating how dirty this was gonna get so fast. I'm not complaining though, but like, I was just in the TV room sitting beside my grandmother and reading smut. So I'm on page 155 and one of the guys, Chris, is wearing a pink polo shirt. Why am I telling you that? That's not relevant at all, right? That's what I thought. But I'm gonna have to read it to you. This is Dag's narration. Chris looked good too, as usual, in a pair of plaid shorts and a pink polo shirt that only he with his wide shoulders and muscled arms could pull off. Nice shirt, man. This is Dag speaking. Because it's pink? Or because it's a polo shirt? Because I'm more inclined to agree with the polo shirt part. But then Dag says out loud to Chris, nice shirt, man. He lifted an eyebrow. You borrowed that from Cassidy. And you know, it's this hysterical thing because he's a guy and he's wearing pink and oh my god, you must have borrowed that from your girlfriend. And you know what I think is hysterical, Dag? Your fucking name. Just when I thought Dag had no more surprises for us, he turns out to be a follower of Ann Grech. It was going fine. Why did you have to put that there? Don't write that down. I don't want to know a character is a follower of Ann Grech. Ever. So, bit of a spoiler. If you for some reason mind that, here's a timestamp for you to skip to. But one of the side characters, Cassidy's sister, Haley, turned out to be a porn actress, and you know, I don't really want to get into the whole discussion now. So it's fine that she's a porn actor, that's not my issue, but Cassidy just thought it was like the most outrageous thing in the world at first, and she was disgusted by it, and she wanted to tell their parents, and they both had daughters, like, she wanted to tell their parents about her sister being a porn star, and the guys had to talk her out of it and stuff like that. And then finally at the barbecue family thing, she went to confront Hailey about Hailey being a porn star, and I was actually quite concerned that the book would side with Cassidy and her ideas regarding porn stars and sex workers and all that jazz. And I was quite concerned with that. But my girl Hailey, she stood her ground beautifully. And we stand, you know? I just, stood her ground, and she said, listen, I'm a fucking adult. I am making my money. I am paying my rent. This is my work. I am respected. So stay in your fucking lane. And I appreciated that. I mean, obviously, the whole discussion regarding porn and all of that is a lot deeper and more complex than that. But I appreciated that the book didn't condemn her and sided with Cassidy, because she was being a fucking bitch. And also, we got this line, it's in a monologue, and it's Cassidy's. I keep thinking her name is Cassie for some reason. I think that's a nickname. Anyway, it goes, who was she to judge her? She couldn't judge anyone for choices they made. Much as she tried to defend what she and Chris and Doug were doing, most people would think it was wrong, sinful, depraved, but she didn't care, and she supposed she could understand that Hailey felt the same way. And character development, maybe? Hopefully? So, I'm on page 201, and Doug and Chris just started fighting, like physically fighting, and ended up making out, which is one of my favorite tropes ever. Oh my god. Don't get me wrong, I don't endorse the type of behavior in real life. Please don't think I do, but like, it's one of my favorite tropes. The thing is, I usually read these types of scenes in stories with a romance between like spies or assassins or something like that. And it sort of makes more sense there because, you know, they kind of have to fight in the stories, like for a living with other people. So it fits a bit more. But here, despite it being more of a macho man sort of thing, which I despise in real life, I think it worked for some reason. Why? I don't know. Just, I like it. That's the thing that I have to say right now. I think what draws me to this trope is just getting to see people with unhealthy coping mechanisms dealing with their feelings in unhealthy ways, which I do appreciate reading about. Don't appreciate in real life, do appreciate reading about. So, page 203, and we get this fucking gem. He might be confused or in denial, or who the hell knew what he was feeling, but his body wanted this, even if he didn't. Which, yikes. We were doing so fine. We were going so well here. Why did you have to make that commentary? Okay, thankfully, they both noticed how unhealthy that whole situation was and how wrong it would be for them to work at that time, and decided to sit down and talk like two adults, which we love to see. I'm very thankful for that, because like I was worried we were gonna get another Downtown Devil situation, which, let me tell you, I'm not interested in. So, I just finished reading The Rule of Three by Kelly Jamieson, and I really liked it, which is very surprising because when I started it, I thought it was gonna be bad, but like bad in a funny way. And it ended up being very good. I mean, it's not a 5-star read, but it was very nice. I really liked it. I think it was better than, what was the name? Delectable, the first one I read. But yeah, I really liked it, and I really liked how in the end of the novel, all of the characters, the 3 main characters, I mean, sat down and actually talked about how the relationship was going to work and like define the boundaries and everything. Really, they talked about everything, and in a very mature way too, which was surprising. And I really appreciated that. I did not expect it to happen, but I really appreciated that. I appreciated too how, especially in this last conversation, I could really see how the characters had developed, you know, compared to how they were in the beginning of the story, which is also good. And the writing was okay. It's like sometimes, yeah, it was good. I think it was good. It was like nothing special by any means, but it was good. You know, there were a few descriptors that made me a bit, you know, like we constantly got, well, not constantly, it happened a few times throughout the book, but it wasn't anything like the repetition in Delectable, for example, or Downtown Devil. But we actually got quite a few descriptions about masculine smells and masculine this and masculine that and feminine this and feminine that. And I don't vibe with that, because first of all, I don't know what the hell the author means when they use that as a description. And second of all, if it means what I think it means, then that's a whole other problem in and of itself, because having a dick doesn't make you a male and having a pussy doesn't make you a female. I don't think I have to explain this here on booktube, but like, there's this thing that I notice happens. Well, I mean, I haven't read that many books for this quest for the best thing yet, but I've noticed that in the romances where there's already a couple at first, like male and female couple, and another guy comes in, there's this thing where at some point the girl thinks that the 2 guys are gonna get together and leave her. It happened in both Delectable and this, and I'm like, I don't really get it. I think in Delectable I got more, but in this one I think it didn't really make a lot of sense, because constantly she'd be like, oh yeah, I'm in love with both of them, but then she would say like, oh, but what if Chris loves Doug? Then he's gonna leave me. And I'm like, girl, you just said that you love both guys. What makes you think that they cannot love both you and the other one? Make it make sense? I don't know, I just think it's a bit incoherent. Not to say that people are not incoherent ever, but like, I didn't see it making a lot of sense, especially in this one. Also, I found out that this is actually the first book in a trilogy that's gonna follow these 3 characters still. And I am definitely gonna read the other ones. I don't really know what's gonna happen from here, but it seems like this was the book just to introduce the 3 people and like start the relationship, for us to see the start of the relationship and how it all came to be and came to work out and all that. And I'm guessing the next one is gonna have some drama regarding people finding out about them, and I'm gonna read it, that's the thing. It's also quite interesting because when I decided to make this video, one of the things that I wanted to do was to read different books with like different configurations and different types of polyamorous or non-monogamous relationships in general. Delectable started with feelings and eventually got to sex, and Rule of 3 started with sex and eventually got to feelings, and it was nice seeing different ways to tell the story, you know. Not that it's the same story, but like to tell this type of relationship. And I think that's what I'm seeking with this whole experience, and what I will be trying to seek on the next few videos that I'm gonna make on this whole series, I guess. It's, you know, to find all of, not all, but like different ways to have a non-monogamous relationship, and different stories and different ways to tell the stories. I also appreciated that this wasn't some type of gay for you shit, and Dag says, I believe around the end of the novel, that he's bisexual, and Chris doesn't label himself, at least not in this novel, but he goes a bit more in depth about his sexuality, and homeboy ain't straight. I know it's like the bare minimum, but I can't help myself but feel appreciative when it happens, which questionable, maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna rate this book, and then I'll come back to wrap the video up. Okay, so let's wrap it up. The first book that I read for this video was Delectable by Ann Grech. I still don't know how to pronounce her name. And I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. My main gripe with it was the writing. I really didn't like the writing. And I was quite shocked when I found out reading the book that the characters were supposed to be around 24. Because it really read like they were older than that. In the end, the book read a bit as if an older person was writing a 24-year-old, which is not that great. I don't know how old the author is, so I can't confirm that for sure, but that's how it read anyway. I really liked the characters, I really liked the story, but I strongly disliked the writing, so I had to bump the rating down a bit. The second book that I mentioned in this video was Downtown Devil by Cara McKenna, and I gave this one 2 stars. Well, you watched it, you know why, that's, yeah. And then the third book, no pun intended, was 3 by Hannah Moskowitz. And I absolutely adored this book. I gave it 5 stars, but I do have to repeat that there are quite a few editing issues with the book. So sometimes there are grammar mistakes, sometimes there are typos, sometimes there's an extra word in a sentence, and other times there's a word missing, stuff like that. So yeah, I would highly recommend you read it, because it really is a very good book, but bear that in mind. Try not to get taken out of the story too much. I still highly recommend this book, don't get me wrong, but, you know, bear that in mind. And finally, the last book that I read for this video was Rule of 3 by Jamieson. Wow, I really didn't do my work properly before I sat down to record this. Oh my god. So yeah, Rule of 3. Bumpy start, but I ended up really enjoying it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which really surprised me. I started the book and it was a bit cringy at first, but like in a funny way. And, you know, I thought that was gonna be it. I was just gonna read the book and have a good laugh, and, you know, even if it was bad, at least it would have been funny. But the book really surprised me. It actually got a lot better very quick, so I ended up really enjoying it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to leave your recommendations down below, and, you know, I think I'll probably do Quest for the Best for other specific things that I want to find in books as well, eventually. Not now exactly, but you know what I mean. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and, you know, till next time.